For more than 50 years, the colourful rainbow lorikeets have been welcoming visitors to Currumbin Sanctuary. The visitors and the lorikeets are both there by choice, a feeling of mutual trust that is difficult to describe. Alex Griffith began feeding the wild lorikeets back in 1946 with a nectar mix he based on honey, to distract them from damaging his gladioli flowers. This simple action, together with his gentle presence, soon made them lose their fear of him, and the sanctuary as we know it today was born. Up till then, bees had been his main interest, but that was quickly matched by the birds. Lorikeets in particular have a unique attachment to humans, and this fact fascinated him. For many people, that would have been the end of the story, but Alex was a visionary. With his love of wildlife, especially birds, he fostered the idea, and it wasn't long before his friends and neighbours came to help. His backyard became a very special place for Alex, and a realisation of a very special vision. At his bushland retreat in the Currumbin Valley, Alex, now in his 80s, has still not wavered from his original ideals.
The sight of a caged bird depresses me, and if I can have these up here completely free, I feel that I will have accomplished something.
Alex could see the development of the Gold Coast was beginning, and the natural tree corridor to Currumbin could be lost, and so too could the daily visits from the birds. As well, his property was becoming too small to accommodate the ever-increasing number of visitors. With these points in mind, Alex snapped up a large parcel of land on the western side of the highway. This area of natural bush, containing eucalypt forests, melaleuca swamplands, and even rainforest, could become a place of refuge. Sick and injured birds and animals could be nurtured here, and if possible, released back to the wild. In 1956, National Geographic magazine featured an article on the bird sanctuary. This awoke people around the world to Alex Griffith and his lorikeets, and made them a must-see when visiting Australia. It became obvious to Alex that visitors who came to feed the lorikeets were wanting to see more. This whole area could become a sanctuary where people could spend time away from the developing world of glitzy high-rises. While having no training in tourism as such, he had the uncanny knack of introducing exhibits that drew the tourist. Alex looked to the future. Each attraction was designed to last. He designed buildings based on the octagonal shape of a honeycomb cell in a beehive, and this concept has been carried on to this day. He commissioned the building of a quarter-sized steam locomotive and progressively laid out a rail track system around the grounds. Now, over 30 years later, people are still entranced with this beautifully built locomotive. 3 of the huge timbers that were part of the original Jubilee Bridge at Southport formed the gateway to the Western Reserve and are still standing today. This old German wagon was built for the early pioneers of Currumbin. The saving of these pieces of local history is an example of the foresight that Alex displayed. This priceless mural was painted by Hugh Sori, now one of Australia's best-known artists, and a good friend of Alex's in the early days of the sanctuary. Taking many months to complete, it now takes pride of place in the sanctuary's Sori Room restaurant. Once again, Alex's eye for lasting quality secured for the people of Australia this unique art treasure. With the rapid development of the Gold Coast, Alex became more concerned for the wildlife in the area. A short distance up the Currumbin Valley, he purchased Currumbin, a parcel of land with considerable beauty, which adjoins one of the last remaining stands of rainforest on the Gold Coast. It was here that Alex would release many birds and animals he had nursed back to health. It's 1976. For almost 30 years, Alex Griffith had built and nurtured his sanctuary. The physical and financial strain of its everyday running was telling, but he had given his assurance that it would never die. Not for one moment considering financial gain, he did a remarkable thing. He gave the sanctuary and Currumbin Reserve to the people of Australia to be managed by the National Trust of Queensland. By doing this, he ensured a safe harbour for all wildlife in the area and provided inspiration and a meeting place for the people of the world. After so long in the driving seat, Alex found it extremely hard to relinquish his control. Not like most men content to retire and rest on their laurels. For a time he went to live in the Currumbin Valley, close to Currumbin, and explore the nickel rainforest in great detail.
I knew every square foot of that. I built 2 tracks through it, one up and one down, and they included all the interesting trees and features of the forest. I never a day passed that I didn't see something that I hadn't seen before.
This valley was a special place for Alex, a place of peace and tranquility that in later life he would be drawn back to. Maybe it was at this time that the spark for a new direction was ignited. Back in his cottage at Currumbin, Alex's concern with the destruction of nesting trees for birds activated his fertile mind. Through the press, he voiced his concern for the loss of the local lorikeet population. He went about designing nesting boxes that could be placed in selected trees to encourage the birds to breed and stay in the area. Alex always looked for perfection, always trying to improve on the improvement. A doctorate was bestowed on Alex at Griffith University, an event celebrated with Robert Newman, former Mayor of the Gold Coast. Over the years, Alex has received recognition for his life's work. The Order of Australia is one of his prized possessions. Back in 1989, he and naturalist David Flay both received the Keys of the City. His 80th birthday was a day of celebration. Alex had remained a bachelor. Some say he was married to his sanctuary and his wildlife. But on this day, this sometimes shy and reserved man was surrounded by his admirers. In his later life, his visits to the sanctuary were infrequent. But on a fine day, a ride on the steam train tempted him to recapture that early vision. As the train passes through the grounds and round the lagoons, a flashback to the 1960s shows what it was like in those days. Crossing the same bridge today renews many memories. The beautiful jacaranda tree that has stood beside the bird feeding arena for many years holds a great significance for Alex. In a thoughtful mood, he remembers his favourite sister who had passed away at an early age. Her ashes had been placed beneath him when it was just a sapling. In a change of mood, the souvenir shop takes his attention. He remembers in the early days he had constructed a simple entrance building on this spot, cutting all the shingles for the roof by hand. Now in its place is this modern building where the tourists have a fine collection of goods to choose from. A property in the Currumbin Valley close to Currumbin was released onto the market in the 1990s. On the survey map it was called Lot 7. Now in his twilight years with his retirement money, Alex bought this 4 hectares and once again turned his considerable talents to creating yet another haven. A request from a close friend was to spark an idea, a garden of remembrance, a spot he just calls trees.
When we plant a tree up here with a person's ashes, stirred into the ground, it's here forever. And that's a long time, isn't it?
Following this, he was asked by many more people could they place the ashes of their loved ones in this tranquil spot. Although not as agile as he used to be, his organising ability rose to the occasion, and landscaping and planting of many native trees and shrubs was begun. His latest vision began to take shape with the help of many members of the community. Once again, Alex set about ensuring that this little piece of nature was saved for posterity. It could be said that Alex Griffith became a legend in his own lifetime. A man as unique as the creatures with whom he shared his life. A man who went forward with a quiet presence and an ability to enthuse others, never swerving from his ideals and his concern for nature. A man of vision.